Hey guys, welcome back to taking a look at a couple of figures here from the Snail Shell company. We're taking a look at the pair of Sandhouse figures. In the last video, we took a look at Shikura, and she was very awesome. In today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look here at Saori, who is the second in this pair of figures here from Snail Shell. So awesome stuff. Stay tuned as we're going to be checking out the box, all the contents, and then we'll take a look at the figure itself. Let's get into it for today's video. Alright, so like we saw with Shikura, the box art here for Saori is really nice with a nice glossy image there of the character, and then the background is a nice matte flat finish there. And just to give you guys a nice close-up look at that photograph, there you go. The character is going to look really nice there with some markings included as well, which do look pretty cool on the clothing. And then here on the sides of the box, you can see a few other different poses here, and here, a little bit more suggestive it seems with this one. And then on the top of the box, another pose there, looking quite Genki. The bottom of the box features, I think that's the same photo that we saw on the other box that shows the two figures together there on the bottom. And then on the back side is going to show us our face options here with this one. I'm guessing that these two are going to be our two faces with the movable eyes like we saw with the other figure. Here is a look at everything that's going to be included. So a smaller display stand of the rocks, which as we saw in the previous review was a bit of an issue for that figure, and I'm guessing it's probably going to be a similar issue this time around. A lot more flame effects with this one though, and then her weapon is going to be handheld, which will give us a little bit more freedom in the articulation of the figure itself, which I think will probably be an advantage. And then here is a look at the character with some of those flame parts, which I'm guessing you can kind of connect together in order to make this kind of like spinning, sort of like fire spin sort of look there that you can make with those. And again, nice glossy image set against the matte background of the box does look pretty cool. Pop it open and take a closer look at our contents here before we check out the figure in full. Just like before, we've got our character bio card here for Saori with that same image from the front of the box, some stats over here, and then some face images down there. And then on the back side, the same images that we saw before with some illustrations of some different Snail Shell figures that are, I think, were on the way at the time of this release, but I think a couple of those are out now. And then a couple of the other available figures, or ones that were also on the way from a Snail Shell, you guys can check those out. Our instruction manual, as we saw before, I can only assume is going to be the same, where it's going to show us all of our contents here, and then just kind of how to use some of the parts, like how to move the eyes there, for example, how to move some of the parts, how to move the parts for the weapon, how to utilize the flame effect parts. Here it's going to show how you can kind of connect everything together there. Sorry if I can show you guys that. So it'll show how to connect everything together. And we've got Japanese on one side, Chinese on the other side is basically how that's going to work. And we've got some stuff here taped to the bottom of our trays. Looks like that's going to be a spare like key tool part there for moving the eyes, and those look like some spare wrist joints, so just kind of extra parts to keep on hand just in case you break or lose any of those. We also have a little bag of these little connection parts, which I'm guessing we're going to be using there for the flame effects, so just some extras there. Got our 5 clear effect arms here that you can use for the display of everything. And then ultimately 3 trays of parts here, the lowermost, the bottom tray here. This one is going to be featuring some of the flame effects and some of the rock effects. Now, like I talked about in the review for Shikura, the rock effect does look really nice, but it being all in one color, it could definitely do with some painting on there if you want to paint on this. I think that would be very easy to do. Do some dry brushing, some panel line wash on there, paint this up a little bit just to give it a little bit more detail. But one nice thing about this is that you can see it has 1, 2, 3, 4 points for plugging the display arms onto there, which is one thing that I talked about with Shikura being an issue, that you didn't really have enough points to actually plug the display arms onto the rock base. So that does seem to be less of an issue, hopefully, with this one, and that does look, again, pretty cool. And just to take a look here at one of the flame effect parts, again, like we saw with Shikura, these do look really nice with the gradient red to orange to yellow on there. On these flame effect parts do look really nice, and this is once again in a slightly softer plastic, although it still is pretty rigid, it seems. Looking at one of these smaller, thinner pieces here, yeah, it's not too soft, it is pretty rigid. And if you look really closely, you can see the hard point where we're going to be connecting this onto other parts. And I do like the fact that you kind of really have to look for it. I mean, looking at this from a distance, you're going to have a hard time really noticing that the hard point is actually right there. So that's good that that's pretty well hidden. We've also got a couple of connection pieces here for the display arm. This clasp piece, which is what I think is probably the better option to use. And then this plug, which will plug into the back of the character figure. Our second tray then appears like it's going to be pretty much just all all more flame effects there, so we'll take a look at those in action momentarily. Just want to go ahead and move on to our top tray here, which is going to feature the bulk of our kind of other main accessories here. Here's her handheld staff weapon, which comes out to about 21 centimeters in length, which does look really, really cool. Some really nice pre-painting here on this, and those clear parts also looking very nice. So as we saw in the instructions, there are a couple of moving bits here with this, but ultimately that makes for a pretty nice looking weapon there. We've got another flame effect part, which actually looks exactly the same like what we had with Shikura. So that one, as we saw, does look pretty nice. Has a bit more, slightly more rigid piece there at the center, and these kind of outer pieces are in a little bit softer plastic. We've got another key piece here for moving the eyes. So like I said, the other one is just a spare in case you lose this. And then we've got some hand option parts here. Looks like we've got peace sign hands here for the left and the right side, and then two different types of holding hands. We have these for the left and the right as well, but you'll notice they're just a little bit different in just the way that the hand is going to be holding onto the weapon. One's going to be more at an angle, one's going to be more just kind of straight there. So depending on how you want to hold that, you can utilize those hand options. And I can only assume that what we're going to have on the figure here is going to be a pair of closed fists. Actually not. It would appear that we don't have a pair of closed fists for this, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we have open hands there like that. And we'll come back to the main figure here in just a moment. Just want to take a look here at our option faces, and you'll notice this one looking a bit strange because that does have the adjustable eyes, which need to be adjusted a little bit to get that pose looking quite right. It's looking a little bit odd. And then the winking face too also has a single adjustable eye there because obviously it's winking. So, but those do look really nice. The painting and the printing on those looking really, really good. And just to double check our face option part that we have here on the figure, yep, this one does have two movable eyes there as well. All right, and then checking out the main figure here, I gotta say, I think the painting on this one is even better than on Shikura, just because you have a lot more of this kind of pattern and printing on here with this kind of like decal looking printing, and a lot more of the orange, white, and dark gray accents. So it maybe not necessarily that it's like a better quality than on Shikura. The painting quality on the Shikura figure was also really nice, but you have a lot more little bits of color, it seems like, with this one. And then this gradient here on the lower legs also really quite nice, from that orange up to the dark gray, almost black there at the top of the legs. So a lot of really nice painting on this one. The hair is of course articulated here as well, and as we saw, the articulation did have a couple of points of limitation on the Shikura figure. This one does seem to be, obviously without these big massive gauntlets on the arms, it's not going to really have too much of an issue as far as the articulation goes. That said, the other weak point of the Shikura figure that I pointed out to you guys was that it did seem a little bit weak in the hip section in particular, which did cause the figure to not really be able to stand very well on its own, basically requiring that you use the display arm. And I think that's probably going to be the case with this one, although it does feel a bit more solid, which is nice. Ultimately, you're probably just going to want to use this with the display base, and here you can see where that can be plugged onto the back right there. Or like I said, just using this clasp piece is just going to be kind of the better option for displaying this figure. Oh yeah, and of course, one other thing to point out to you guys, just like with Shikura, not all of these skin tone parts, like for the thighs, the upper arms, and the face, but for the skin tone parts, for the chest in particular, they are in this soft, squishy rubber, which gives you a little bit different kind of feel to those particular parts. And I will also point out that there's a couple of pieces on the rock base that you need to remove in order to attach the flame pieces onto the rock base directly. If you want to, there's a couple that plug onto there. Otherwise, the other couple of flame pieces that we have here are just kind of self-standing that you just kind of had to put next to the rock base. And again, it gets a little bit into a similar issue like we had with Shikura, where the base has these different elements that kind of go together, but you don't really have a good proper way to actually tie them together. I wish that there would have been something that kind of connects those external flame parts to the rock base in some way, or some way to kind of tie them together. Also, just a small thing, but those flame parts that are supposed to stand separately should be flat on the bottom, and they are mostly, but they're slightly curved. So if they're a little bit curved and you want them to sit perfectly flat, you may have to just try to reshape those clear parts a little bit just to get them to be perfectly flat on your desk or surface or whatever. But overall, I will say that the articulation in the range of dynamic poses that you're able to do with this one is a lot nicer than with Shikura. And again, that is just mostly due to the design, but I think there's kind of two things that kind of go to really help the overall dynamic look of this. And number one, it's the flame parts. Obviously, you have these big kind of circling flame parts that just do look quite dynamic. And then the articulation of the figure itself, being able to do more of these dynamic poses. I think overall this is a much more dynamic looking figure compared to Shikura. And while the two obviously make a really nice set and go together very well, if you guys ask me to only recommend one of them, this is the one. Saori is the one that I would recommend if you only wanted to get one of the two. And it could just be a quality control issue, but I do feel like she's also a bit more sturdy, a little bit less weak in the hip section. So just being able to do different poses a little bit easier and being able to hold the pose a little bit easier with this one also is kind of nice. But again, I'm not sure if that's just my copy that I got is like that, for one of the two, or if that's a more common issue kind of between these two figures. But overall, a very interesting design, and I hope that you guys enjoyed taking a look at something a little bit different here today. I don't often review kind of figures like this. I don't really like to just stick to actual model kits, but these were a couple of designs that I was quite interested in. They were just cool character designs, so I wanted to check out the Snail Shell line with you guys and share some of my thoughts. But like I said in the previous review, if you guys would like to see me take a look at some more of these Snail Shell figures in the future, definitely let me know in the comments. If there's a particular one that you would like to see, you can let me know in the comment section, and just let me know your thoughts on this line, these figures. And of course, if you want to check out some of these for yourself, you can check the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store. We've got the Snail Shell figures as well as Figma and model kits and everything else there that you guys can check out. So check out the link in the video description. And as always, guys, thank you so much for all of your support, leaving a like, leaving a comment, making sure that you're subscribed. I really appreciate all your guys' support. Thank you so much. Until next time, I hope that you guys all have a great day. I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.